Welcome to Why We Are Christians. My name is Kent Philpott, and this is an interview program, a conversational interview with someone who is a Christian, and what we're going to do is we're going to find out how it is that they became a Christian. Right now, via Skype, we are talking with Desmond Wedderburn, and he is in New York. Hello,
Yeah.
Desmond.
Hey!
You know, we got to know you because a year ago, you sent to us a book of your poems.
Yes.
And we kind of lost track. You talked to my
Yeah.
wife, Katie. She
Yeah.
made some suggestions. And so you
Yeah.
got back in touch with us. And we love your poems, and we're gonna get ready to publish them. Some coming up here. Won't be too long. And
Yeah,
but anyway,
yeah.
welcome,
Oh,
Desmond.
thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited,
Yeah, it's going to be great. Where are you at right now?
I'm in Brooklyn, New York City.
Okay, all right, you're there. Okay, but you were born in pronounced Clarendon, Jamaica, West Indies.
Yeah, so I was born in a town called Maypen, in the parish of Clarendon, which is in Jamaica, West Indies.
Okay.
So it's kind of like Brooklyn, New York City, America. So it's Maypen, Clarendon, Jamaica. It's the same thing.
Okay.
So Maypen would be like Brooklyn, a city or a town.
Okay,
Yeah.
I gotcha. And so that's where you went, what you call primary school.
Yeah, went to Maypen Primary in Jamaica.
What language did you speak there?
It's just English.
Just
Same
English?
We were under British control until the 1960s when we got our independence. But Jamaica, we have our native dialect, which is called Patois.
Say that again.
So we have our native language, and it's called Patois. It's just another way of for us to communicate.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So you grew up with those two languages, and then it looks like when you were about 12 years old, you moved to America.
Yeah, so moved to New Jersey, a place called Bloomfield, and lived there for a while. Went through junior high and high school there. Yeah.
Did you play any sports in high school?
Oh yeah. Well,
What'd
to
you
be
do?
honest with you, when I first came, only thing I knew was soccer, and I was really good in cricket. But I saw the guys in my community were playing basketball, and I didn't really pick up a basketball until 10th grade. And then as soon as I picked it up, I became good, and I played for my high school for the 2 years. Yeah, 2 or 3 years I played for varsity high school.
Now, I can't see you stand up, but I have an idea you're a big guy.
I am 6'3". Yeah, 6'3"
Okay,
and a half, if you want to be accurate. Yeah, and I wear size 14.
Okay, all right.
And look at my hands. So when I grab you and hold on to you, I'm gonna hold on to you.
That's great, Desmond. Okay. Well, very good. Now, I see here also you've got an associate degree in liberal arts from Fairleigh Dickinson University in Teaneck, New Jersey.
Yeah, Teaneck, New Jersey, yes. So I went to Fairleigh Dickinson for 2 years. I had a learning disability when I was in school. I was diagnosed, and so Fairleigh Dickinson had a wonderful 2-year. It's a 4-year school, a very good 4-year school. But they had a 2-year program, kind of like a community college program for underprivileged kids who really didn't have like the SAT scores and stuff like that. And so I was able to get in, and it was great.
Okay. Now, fine arts. Liberal arts. Was there any actual arts? I mean, painting or music?
I just think that's like a fancy way of saying just basic stuff.
Just basic stuff. Okay. All right.
Stuff. Yeah, it was just basic stuff.
Okay. Now, also, I see a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from Lincoln University, Oxford, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So it's about 45 minutes north of Philadelphia, It's one of the first historically black schools, and I really wanted to go there just to dive into, just to be more diversified, in my experience. And and it was great. I was there for 3 years, and I got my bachelor's. And I actually played for Lincoln University on their basketball team for about 2 years.
Did you
Yeah.
really?
Oh
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So it was pretty awesome. It was great.
That's wonderful. Now, and then to follow that up, I see you got a Master's of Divinity.
Yeah.
I have that degree. My wife Katie has that. Great degree. And from Alliance Theological Seminary of Nyack College.
Yes, in New York. Yes. So and that was the year 2001. I graduated my undergrad in '94, and in 2000, I'm trying to remember, 2001 is when I started Alliance. And if you've ever heard of A.B. Simpson,
Oh,
the
yeah.
missionary.
Oh, yeah,
so
sure.
he's the one that started the school. So
Oh, really?
It's a Christian Missionary Alliance, CMA, but it's kind of like interdenomination. Anyone
No.
can go there and,
great.
and start.
Great denomination. We had a Simpson Bible College in San Francisco.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get your Master's of Divinity?
I was working in corrections, and I had to leave my job to finish school, but it took me about 4 years to finish. Did it in 4 years. Usually that program takes 3 years full time.
Right.
Yeah, I had to learn the Greek, the Hebrew, and go through the exegetical studies and all of that stuff. Yeah, had to read the Septuagint.
It's a great degree. I love my years. I love my years doing that degree. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So let's go back a little more to your growing up, Desmond. Tell me a little bit about the religious nature of Jamaica.
Okay. So my religious experience when I was young, didn't really go to church too much. Jamaica used to be about 80% Christianity, but now it's a little bit more diversified. It's maybe 65% now, but still more so than anything else. But then there's also different cult worship that goes on. Jamaica has their own version of West African voodoo called Obia.
Yes.
Obeah, and it's basically kind of the same thing, and that's also been filtered into the church. There are churches that are called revival churches, which they take that great name or that great experience, and they somehow accredit it to satanic worship, and there's an intermingling with churches and this cult worship as well. But there are a lot of great, fine churches that are just not a part of that. So, but me growing up in Jamaica, my parents, they were believers, they were Christians, but I think they were more of a religious sense, regular churchgoers, seasonal. And I would attend Sunday school every once in a while, once in a blue moon. So I didn't really grow up going to church in the sense,
Okay.
But I knew about God. I didn't have a concept about Jesus really, but I had a concept that there's a Father God, and just like anybody else, just knew the Matthew chapter 6 prayer, Our Father who art in heaven. So, and Psalms 23 is maybe the two scriptures that I knew growing up.
All right, Desmond. So that's interesting. You say about the religion. It's Obia.
Obia.
Obia. I call it Santeria. That was the worship of the saints, essentially. But that was taken from West Africa into and it's all through that region. Sadly enough. So I see you wrote down here your early concepts of life and God. God is our Father. He is our Creator. I knew only heaven and hell from what the world said.
Yeah. Through movies, through music, you would hear these things, but I didn't really have the understanding I have now. but it was just a general sense that there is a heaven and there is a hell. And I just always believed that there was. I just didn't really understand what it was about. Some of the music I listened to, they were saying, well, this is hell right now, and hell is here, or heaven is here. And, there's other things that say when there's no heaven, or, so different views, but I kind of stuck with, I like to think that there is a heaven. But,
Now, I gotta ask you this, Desmond, Bob Marley. Bob Marley, did you grow up with his music and style stuff?
Oh, yeah, well, everybody in Jamaica grew up with Bob Marley and other reggae artists, and he is iconic. And he was one of the cult religions there. It was Rastafarianism, Rastafari, and he was kind of like one of their evangelists, one of their main guys to go out there and and I'm sure you know a little bit about Rastafarianism.
Yes, a little bit.
They believe that, the true son of God was the former emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie, and so that is their savior. But did you know that Bob Marley, before he died on his deathbed, that he gave his life to Jesus?
Is that right? I did not know that, Desmond.
Oh, yeah.
That's the first I've heard of that.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, it was the Ethiopian Orthodox Church that actually came and buried him. And
Really?
They did his funeral. Yeah, he gave his life to Jesus on his deathbed.
Wow, that's incredible.
And
That's
it's
wonderful to hear.
I heard this over on an interview, and his wife, Rita Marley, called up her friend, because Bob Marley had backup singers. His wife, Rita Marley, Judy Mowat, and Marcia Griffiths. And so she called up Judy Mowat and said, hey, he's calling up for Jesus Christ. Why is he not calling for Selassie? So she testifies that she was on the phone when he was doing it.
Wow. Wow, Desmond.
Allegedly, that's what I read and stuff, so.
And you didn't even have any of that down here. We just stumbled upon that.
On the streets, we call that freestyling.
All right, Desmond. All right. So now I asked you the question, your first contact with the message of the gospel or with Christians, and you say, I knew this one girl in college that would show me the Bible when I went to see her.
Yeah.
Okay, what's that about?
Well, I was at Lincoln University, and I was a basketball player. I was a popular guy, but I was always like this introvert person. I was never really into big crowds and stuff. And I used to throw parties in my dorm. I'll just get a speaker and put some music on, like an after party. And what I would do, a lot of times, the crowd would be so much that I would go across the street to one of my friends where she stayed in the dorm, and I would just go and hang out with her. And every time I would go see her, whether it's day or night, she always used to open the Bible and say, let us read. And I was like, okay, fine. And we would just read a scripture, and then I would hang out with her for a while, and then I would leave. But I think that was my first contact, because the reason why I say that is even now when I think about it, that she was the only one that literally opened the Bible and had me read with her. So, but it didn't really sink in here. It probably stayed in my head, but it didn't really sink in here at the time, because that was my first, yeah.
Now, that was at Lincoln University?
Yeah,
in Pennsylvania? Okay.
Yeah, in Pennsylvania, yeah.
Okay. Now, she wasn't a girlfriend, though.
No, but I sure was trying, bro. I sure was trying. Hey, listen, a female that looks great, a guy would do anything to get that female. And trust me, even today, I still think that, man, if I can, her name is Maya. I forget her last name. See, I remember her name. But she was very strict, and I respected that.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
All right, Desmond. Very wonderful. So that was your first contact. So how can you, and you don't have to rush this. You can go slow.
Okay.
Talk talk us through how it is that you actually became a born-again Christian.
Okay. So there was a friend of mine that we used to hang out together in New Jersey and in New York, and he was from the Virgin Islands of St. Croix. And we became really good friends. We used to go to the clubs. We used to go and just hang out at the college where he attended and stuff like that. And we became really good friends. And at the same time, I started to work in the prison upstate New York. I was working as a correctional officer for a maximum secure prison.
Wow.
And
Okay, back up now. Back up. You're working as a CO
yeah,
at a maximum security prison
hmm
in New York.
in New York, yeah, kind of upstate New York, out of
Okay.
maybe 2 hours outside of the city.
Okay.
But there's times that we used to hang out together, and so we always were really close friends. And he started a business. He started a clothing store, like an urban clothing store in his country in St. Croix. And his stepbrother, I believe it's his stepbrother, had put up the money so they can, the capital to get it going and stuff like that, And so there was an issue where the money was being misused and misappropriated. And so one day he told me, he said, "Hey, man, I really want to get this stuff together." And we always thought about entrepreneurship, even when I was young. And I said, "Hey, I have some money saved up from working in the prison." I was actually in an area called Queens, New York, looking to buy a Lexus. So I had like 15, 20 grand saved up, and I was just gonna put some money down and just like, "Hey, I'm working hard. Let me go on and get me a nice car." And he had called me, so I told him, I said, "Hey, I can lend you the money." I said, "You know what? I can give you the money because if I empower you, we are both in it together. And it's almost like if he succeeds, then I succeed." And I just always had that in me. So I said, "I can always work back in the prison and make that money, but I want you to, what we always talked about is entrepreneurship." And so I sent him the money, and he re-advertised the store. And when I said, "Well, who is going to help you run the store?" And he said, "Well, he doesn't have anybody because his stepbrother got into some issues with some drug lords in a neighboring island of St. Thomas, and he was gunned down." So I told him, I said, "Hey, I will come and help you run the store." And it was really convenient because he was also a school teacher in New Jersey. He taught fifth graders. And so he was only able to go back home for the summertime, but for the rest of the year, he had nobody he can trust. And then I told him, I said, I would take a leave of absence from my job in the prison and come to St. Croix and help run the business. And that's how it started. Well, my job wouldn't give me a leave of absence. And I just felt in my heart that this is my chance to really be an entrepreneur. So I was young. I was about 24, 25. I said, I can always get another job somewhere. I have good credentials and stuff like that. So I told him that I'm going to resign. Crazy as I was, I resigned. I didn't tell my mother I was resigning until I got to the island because I know she would have said, "You leaving a state job? Are you crazy?" So I went to the Virgin Islands. I gave up everything, and I went to the Virgin Islands, and I loved it. Everything was awesome. I saw him there in August, and he had to come back to the United States, and I stayed. I got set up, got my apartment. Business was going great. I'm a community person. The business just skyrocketed. It is like better than we had hoped or imagined how it would take off. And I'm a people person.
Desmond, what kind of business?
It was a urban clothing store for kids and young adults.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we had accounts with legitimate, people such as Nautica and Timberland, the things that would sell in the inner city. And so it was great. But every night that I used to go back to my apartment and go to sleep, I would have nightmares. And these nightmares were really horrific. And I mean, face-to-face contact now with demons. And I woke up out of my nightmare afraid and couldn't believe what was going on. It is almost like it wasn't a full sleep, but it was kind of like a sub-sleep where you lay down, but you open your eyes, but you're still in the same position where you are, and you can see everything around you, right? So it wasn't really a deep sleep, but that's when I saw I was being attacked by demonic forces. I was, I was being grabbed, slapped around, things like that. And I would wake up with bruises and stuff on me, and I'm wondering, like, what's going on? Well, it came to the point where after sleeping for maybe a few weeks, off and on, trying to figure out what's going on, not wanting to go to sleep, one day I actually woke up out of my sleep, and those demonic forces that were there jumped out of my sleep, and they were in my reality, but in shadowy figures.
Desmond.
Yes.
You're not the first person that has told me this. This is far more common than what a lot of people do. I mentioned one of my more recent books is how Jesus casts out demons today, and demon possession and demonic is a very real thing. I've done it many hundreds of times over the course of 5 decades now.
Wow.
And it's a very real thing, and I do understand what you're talking about. You're not. Some people will say, well, Desmond has gone mental, some form of psychotic experience or some form of mental illness, but it's not. And I think the results is going to show that. So I'm sorry, Desmond. Okay, keep going, guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to work, really tired, can't sleep, fighting these things, these shadows that are moving around. And now it got serious where they're actually grabbing me and I'm being assaulted. So I would get up and go to work, but I would ask, my coworkers and people that work for me, and I said, this is what I'm going through. So I'm asking anybody now about what's going on. And there was a girl that walked in. From, because where we had the store, we had it in a plaza. So she walked in from the bank, and I asked her, I'm asking anybody, and she said, oh yeah, I had nightmares like that. I went through the same thing. But I met Jesus when I went to the church and got baptized. I had no more nightmares. And then I met another guy that walked in, and I was asking him as well. He said, "Well, I gave my life to Jesus Christ, and after that, I had power over those things." And I said, "What? Tell me more about this Jesus Christ. Tell me more about what I got to do." Well, he gave me a book about Revelation. I read that book in 2 weeks, and I got really scared. And I said, "I really want to know what's going on." And so I went to a gift store that was next to where my store was, and I bought a Christian Bible because I was trying different religions before I knew about going to Christianity. So I tried, Islam. I called upon Buddha and Allah, and they never came. I called upon Selassie, but he never showed up. I even thought about like the Egyptology gods. None of them showed up. And the Christianity Bible, the Christian Bible was just next in line. So what I do remember was Psalms 23. And so I had called a relative in the States, either was my mother or a relative or aunt. And she basically said, just open your Bible up to Psalms 23 and they will go away. Well, I did that and they got angry, okay? I literally was laying down in my bed that one night. I know we have a few more minutes for it. I was laying down in my bed one night, and I felt the evil presence come into the room. So what I did, I stuck up my middle finger at it as a friendly gesture. And what happened was that demonic force with a shadow put the finger back in my hand like this and wrestled me on the bed while the Bible is still open.
Now Desmond, people are going to think you're nuts. Desmond, going to think you're nuts. But I've heard these stories on and on and on and on, and it really happens. It really takes
Yes.
place. I've actually had it happen to me.
Yes.
So it's not. I don't want the people watching this thinking this guy's a nut. No. This is real stuff. Keep going, Desmond. Okay.
So you got to understand that this is my first time having this experience as well. So for me, I was an instant believer that these things are real because I was the one going through it. And so I began to read the Bible now from Genesis to Revelation. And I read the whole Bible within 3.5 weeks because I was up late at night reading like 30 chapters a night. As I'm reading, I'm watching demons and these shadows run around in my apartment. And when I got to the book of Matthew, I saw that they were running from Jesus because before when I was praying to God, our Father, and I was using all the different names, El Shaddai, El Elyon, all those names. And while I had awareness of what was going on through the stories, by the time I got to the book of Exodus, my whole life has changed. I started following what the law was saying, and my prayer was like, Father, please let me stay alive just to hear the truth. So here we come now to the crescendo of it all. So I got into the New Testament, and I got into the book of Matthew, and I saw that these demons were running from Jesus. So that night, I tell you, I literally was laying in my bed, and I saw all these figures coming into the room, and it went pitch black. The whole room went pitch black. And I heard stuff on my ceiling. I heard stuff outside. I heard voices, and it got really loud. And I said, this is my chance. I'm just going to try to believe this. So I jumped off the bed when I saw all the shadows coming towards me, and any light that was in the room went away, and it was pitch black. And I got on my knees off of my bed, and I just said, Jesus, help me. And when I did that, the shadows, they backed up and they left the room. And I said, oh, this works. And that's how I knew that Jesus was God. Then I said, okay, now we're really going to get busy. So I went back to lay down. Now I know what to do. And they came back. And I just screamed out, Jesus! And they ran. And that's how I knew that God had given me power over these demonic forces. So in the morning when I woke up, I was laying on my bed. There were 2 angels. I didn't see them in the physical, but I saw them in my mind, in the spirit. I was laying down, and there were 2 angels standing next to me, and they said, go back to sleep. We're cleaning you out. And when they said that, I felt an electric surge go from the top of my head all the way through my body, like I was being electrified. And then when I woke up eventually and stepped on the ground to go to the bathroom, because I had to go to work, I felt like I was walking on air. I couldn't believe it, that my feet were touching the ground, but it felt like I had the best Air Jordans on as I was walking, because I was walking on total air. And so, that really began my introduction to who God was and the power of Jesus over what I was going through. Yeah.
Wow, Desmond. We're gonna pick up with you in a minute. We got a minute left here. It'll shock people to hear your story, and also shock them when I say your story is not unique. It is not unique.
Yes.
That I've seen plenty of that after being a street preacher in the Haight-Ashbury and the whole LSD occult-oriented.
Wow.
Strange religious culture that went on at times, and the attraction of the demonic spirits.
Yes.
And so we spent many years doing this kind of ministry. We still do it. A very important ministry. Jesus still casts out demons today.
Absolutely.
All right, Desmond, we're coming to the end of this first program. You just stay there.
Okay.
Don't go anyplace. All right, buddy. All right. Be looking for the second part of our interview with Desmond Wedderburn. So long.